Welcome to the March the 19th, 1996 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie. We are so excited today. We have a wonderful group of ladies as we continue to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the City Council of PTAs. This is our history tape number 273, and we are very excited. I don't remember numbers, lady, but I remember the numbers that you all have done for the wonderful City Council of PTAs. And first of all, I guess the one with the reigning amount of time would be Hazel Bland. Hazel, I believe you are the 22nd president of the City Council of PTAs. Welcome to the set.
Thank you. Yeah.
And the 23rd president of the City Council of PTAs, Marguerite Patton.
Hi,
And number
Ruthie.
24 for 2 years, Miss Peggy Ellard. I'm so glad to have you all with us today as we talk about each and every one of your tenures as the president of the City Council of PTAs. Let's begin with Peggy, because Peggy has a coal of fire today and she may have to move on before we finish this interview, even though really Hazel should go first protocol-wise. So you'll forgive us, won't you, Hazel?
Yes.
Pretty Miss Peggy Ellard, wife of Jared Ellard, wonderful family. Tell us all about your little family. Mention Jared and your daughter and your grandchildren, would you, and set the stage for our interview, why you were in the PTA.
Well, I started in PTA, oh goodness, 30 some odd years ago when my daughter started school, and we moved to Grand Prairie 35 or 36 years ago. I'm married to Jared, and he's a computer programmer and he works for himself. We have the one daughter, Tana, and she has two little girls, Jara and Rennie. And Jara goes to Turnpike Christian School, and Rennie goes to Turnpike Preschool. And PTA was a wonderful experience for me. Some of my best friends that I've made have been in PTA, and my lifelong friends.
Mm-hmm.
So,
When did you move to Grand Prairie, and what brought you to Grand Prairie, Peg?
we moved to Grand Prairie in 1961, and Chance Vault or Langtemco Vault or whatever it was called then was what brought us to Grand Prairie.
All right. And at the time, were you working out of the home, or were you a full-time PTA or room mother and all the good stuff?
No, my daughter was just one when we moved here, and I was Susie homemaker for about a year, and then I worked for General Foods for a while, and then I worked part-time. And then when she started to first grade, well, I got involved in PTA, and that's been the story ever since.
All right, now give us the evolution of the PTAs that you've been a member of, starting with her kindergarten, first grade in the school.
Okay, in the first grade, she was in Crockett Elementary, and I was a member there. And I never will forget the first thing I did for PTA. I was the Halloween carnival, and I was the witch. No, not the witch, the fortune teller. And I wasn't very good at it, but anyway, I tried.
Yeah.
And then we moved to, well, we didn't move, but they opened Bonham Elementary School, and she completed her elementary years at Bonham. Mm-hmm. And I was president there, and then I went on to start working in council PTA. And during that time, after that, she went to Jackson Middle School and then South Grand Prairie, and I was active in all of those PTAs.
Were you president of any of the others other than Bonham?
South Grand Prairie PTA.
South Grand Prairie PTA.
Yes.
And the year that you became president of the City Council of PTAs, was that with apprehension? Were you excited about some of the things that you had planned to do? And what did you do when you were president?
Well, it was with apprehension and excitement. I didn't know whether I could handle that job or not. But it was really a neat thing. It was, to me, council work is so much easier than local unit work because you have the cream of the crop working there. And we had lots of programs that year on youth protection, and I believe that year we changed superintendents of school. If not, maybe it was the next year when we changed. But we had a lot of things in education that were changing. We went from the semester system to the quarter system, and we opened some new elementary schools that year. Don't ask me which ones, because I don't remember that. But
yes.
and when you open a new school, you get to start new PTAs, so it was a real learning experience.
All right. When you were at the council, would you like to name drop some of your officers? I believe you have your yearbook for that first year that You served 2 years, of course, and would you like to name drop some of the exciting people that you've been reminiscing, I know, going over this, getting ready for this interview. Was it a surprise, some of the people that served then that maybe are not on the scene today, and some of those that are diehards and are still working in the area of youth?
Well, you know, Ruthie, it was back then, it was most of your ladies were not working, so you didn't have the thing that they have now with the working moms, where we could do things in the daytime and it was a lot easier. Jane Moore was my aide to the president, and Helen Taylor, who lives in Irving now, was active in PTA. The Wanda Reesing, who we've lost in about the last 3 years, was on the PTA, and Dolores Dreckshaw, who now lives in Duncanville, and Clyde Sealott was really active. He was an older man that really got into PTA and was a delight to be around, but we've also lost him. Margaret Patton and Hazel Bland, of course, were great supporters. I would have never been able to do it. Dr. Leo Bradley was the superintendent at that time, and Bill Arnold was the business associate superintendent of business, I believe was his title. Louise Robinson from the Dalworth community was active, and Sue Steele, who I haven't seen in many years. I know she's still around. But there's a lot of neat people that we met at that time. The next year was our bicentennial year, and that wasn't really exciting. We had a really good thing to work with. We did a lot of red, white, and blue. And our district conference was in Grand Prairie that year, and our district president was Ruthie Jackson.
Oh, my.
And I think both years she was district president. And so she kept all of us busy, and it was a neat time.
In your first year, would you like to mention your program theme and some of the things that you all had in your program that first year that related to your overall theme?
Our program theme for that first year was a commitment to community and school communications. We tried to involve the community as much as we could. We talked about counseling at all levels, and even then we were talking about dropout problems. And there was in education, there was a program they were starting on Plan A, and I believe that had to do with students that were at risk. We had panel discussions on community and educational leaders. And we had one program, Role of Education from the District Attorney's View. I guess, you know, there's a lot of things that were happening then or still happening now. I can remember we'd go into Parent Advisory Committee meetings and we were talking about the lunchroom or the cafeteria food, and they're still talking about the lunchroom and the cafeteria food, which I guess as long as you have kids, you're going to be talking about that.
Another thing, since you have graduated from your tenure as council president, you've gone on and served the council, I guess, the longest tenure of anyone over scholarships.
Yes.
Are you still doing that? Or?
Yes, now I'm not doing the scholarship chairmanship this year, but I am giving advice. I am the trust chairman over there. They have a trust account, and I am the chairman over that, and CETA invested in it. We started that, I think, about 25 years ago, and it's grown to where we'll be able to give scholarships from now on off the interest of that trust, so it's really exciting.
All right, and other than that, what do you do for a living now, Peggy Ellard?
I'm a bookkeeper, and I work part-time for Dateline Travel. I can do reservations. I really don't like to, but I do just a little bit of everything down there.
Yes, well, that's wonderful, and I'd like you to just tell everyone how beneficial it's been for you to have been in the PTA and helped you in your other leadership capabilities, such as being president of the Women's Club, your other activities.
PTA trains their leaders better than any other organization that I know of. It's made it very easy for me to be president of the Women's Club. You learn how to preside, you learn how to delegate, you learn how to work with other people, and it's just a wonderful thing. You make a lot of friends.
I'm glad you were our president for 2 whole years, the 74 through 76 era, and I want to thank you very much for being a part of this interview. And if you do need to leave us, you would very gently remove your microphone and leave it on the back of your chair while we continue with with the interview with these other two ladies, but we'd like for you to stay with us as long as you can.
Thank you, Ruthie.
And thank you very much, Peggy Ellard, and thank Jared Ellard for all he does to back you up and hold up your hands when you're doing all of this community service for us in a splendid way, and also for your help at the Turnpike Church of Christ and Christian School and other things that you do as outreach.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Marguerite Patton, Mrs. Jerry Patton, look out into your camera and introduce yourself. Tell us about Jerry and your family a little bit, and then we're going to get into your tenure.
All right. My husband's name is Jerry. We have 3 sons, Wayne, Steve, and Jimmy. Wayne and Jimmy are married, and we have four grandchildren, 2 grandsons and 2 granddaughters. And Steve and Wayne both live here in Grand Prairie now, and Jimmy lives in Garland.
That's wonderful. You have them all in the Metroplex, so
That's
that
right.
helps.
That's right.
What brought you to Grand Prairie, Texas, Marguerite Patton?
Well, my husband had lived here. His dad came to work for North American during the World War II, and my husband graduated from Grand Prairie High School. And we met in Dallas, and when we decided to get married after he graduated from Texas A&M, we got married here in Grand Prairie, and then we spent 2 years in the Army, and then back to Grand Prairie, and it's been our home ever since 1956.
Tell us about the schools and following your boys around to all of this through your avenues of PTA.
Well, our oldest boy, Wayne, when he started school, we went to Houston Elementary School.
Okay.
And I served as president there when he was in the 6th grade. From there, they transferred our students to Austin Elementary. And then from there, when Eisenhower Elementary was built, we moved there. So we stayed in the same house, but we went to 3 elementary schools.
All right.
And Adams Middle School, and then Grand Prairie High School.
Grand Prairie High School. All right. Did you work in all of these other PTAs other than Houston? You were president there?
I was president in Houston, but I just worked in the others.
Worked in the others, all of the way up to the City Council of PTAs. And
That's
what really prompted your interest in the City Council of PTAs? Were you a delegate from your PTA because you were president at Houston and that got you on the ladder, or what?
While I was at Houston Elementary, before I was president, I was health and safety chairman, and someone took me to a City Council PTA meeting, and we decided we had such a good program, we tried to interest the other schools, and then someone got my name and asked me if I wanted to be a chairman at council the next year.
Oh.
And I always did enjoy working at council because you could see the entire picture of the city and not just your little group.
Mm-hmm. It broadened your interest in the
Very
whole city,
much.
didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right. And going from room mother to president and doing all the things you've done, what is the most enjoyable job that you've ever had in the PTA?
Oh my, that's a hard one to say. Perhaps it was being aide to Hazel Bland. I enjoyed that. She was a very good teacher, and enjoyed working in council so much with her. That was why I entertained the thought of being president someday.
Since you brought along your yearbook and your history, would you like to look out in your camera and tell us a little bit about your year, some of the people you worked with, and maybe some of the programs that you all faced?
Well, one of the things that stands out to me was that was the first year Dr. Bradley came to Grand Prairie. And so it was a year for starting a lot of new things. It was the first year for kindergarten to be a part of the school system. That was the first year that we started volunteers in the schools, primarily because of the young mothers in kindergarten that wanted to help. We established a human relations chairman at council level and requested all the school PTAs to do the same. And the advisory committees were set up at each elementary, or at each school, advisory committee to the principal, as well as then at the council level we had the advisory committee to the superintendent. That was the first year to establish those things. That was the year Sam Rayburn Elementary School started, so we got to help them start their PTA and get started. And of course, Peggy Ellard here was my aide, so I didn't have to do a whole lot because I'd just say, Peggy, can you do that? And she would do it for me.
You gave her a good training
That was
experience.
it. That was it. I'm very good at delegating.
Yes, wonderful. All right, and some of the officers or your program, why don't you give us your theme and your program for the year?
All right, our theme was "We Are Committed," and I think we really were. Our officers that year, of course, Peggy was my aide, and Jane Moore was Director 1, Bobby Oliver, Director 2, Lou Nichols, Director 3, Wilma Dixon. I'd like to know where some of these people are. Was Secretary.
We'll put them to work.
There you go. Earlene Ford, who is deceased now, was our
Yes.
treasurer. Jean McCoy was historian, and Hazel was our parliamentarian.
Your parliamentarian. You had a very wonderful group to
Yes,
work with.
indeed.
Did you get pretty good cooperation from Dr. Bradley and the school administrations and the principals?
We certainly did. We certainly did. And I think it was partly because it was his first year, and everybody was trying to give him every bit of help they could, and he was kind of feeling his way, so he was asking a lot of advice, and we were very happy to give it. And
Since 1973-74, your administration, what has happened to Marguerite Patton since then, on your way to what you're doing now?
Well, of course, PTA is the largest volunteer organization in the world, I'm convinced. I know it is in Grand Prairie. And it helped to revive the volunteer in me and from schooling days. And as Peggy said, it gives you wonderful training and how to conduct meetings, how to work with people, how to delegate, and so forth. And in 1967, which was before I was president of council, we established Happy Helping Hands here in Grand Prairie. And we're still functioning quite well. We'll be celebrating our 30th anniversary next year. And I think you know we're a community service organization. And I'm president of that, and I'm also president of the Grand Prairie Food and Clothing Assistance Co-op, which has 18 organizations in it, and we have a food pantry and a clothing pantry and serve the needy of Grand Prairie. And I'm also president of the Lennox House Advisory Board, and we're so thrilled to have that open, and we still have a little work to do. And
How about West Fork?
oh, yeah. Well, West Fork Presbyterian, of course, is my church, and I'm
Yes.
choir director there and deacon there.
And just celebrated your anniversary
125 years
at West Fork Presbyterian. Oh, that is wonderful. Well, in the interim, between all of those things, and you're being on the top pinnacle now with Happy Helping Hands, you've served the city, I know, on at least 2 commissions because I've had the privilege of appointing you to a couple of those. Would you like to tell us about what your leadership in PTA, that it led you where you would feel comfortable chairing a commission?
Well, I think anytime you can be president of city council PTA or even the local PTA and go through the training, you're going to be able to conduct a meeting or have the confidence at least to try. And I was on the Commission on Aging for 4 years, off for 1 and back on for 6, and was chairman for several of those years. And then I was on the Grand Prairie Park Board for 6 years and chairman for the last year that I was on.
Yes, and just loved that part, didn't you?
I did indeed.
Hated to go off after 6
That's right.
years.
I'm looking forward to a park bond election and working very hard.
Oh, that's
Grand Prairie
wonderful.
needs it.
Marguerite, we want to thank you for your tenure in the PTA, but also for your continued service that you've done in the community. And,
Thank you.
we'll try to get back with something else if we don't let Hazel take up the rest of the time. All right, Hazel Bland, look out and tell us about your family first of all, and don't forget about Bruce.
Well, I guess I should start with Bruce.
Yes.
Bruce came to Grand Prairie in 1946. He says he's one of the newcomers compared to a lot of us who were born here. And we met at church, but as I said, he came in 46 when he got out of service, and I was off to Baylor, so we really didn't get together until 49 or 50, I guess it was, when we started dating some. And he went back into service. He was reactivated in the Korean conflict, and he went back in 51 and got out in 53, so we married in 54. We have, of course, lived here ever since, and he's been very active in things here. He's been on the school board, was on it for 12 years, and he worked at Ford Motor and then at Textar Plastics. He's always been a real helper to me in whatever I've done, and he, our son, Ron, is a photographer, professional photographer. He has studios now in Grand Prairie and Dallas. He is married to a very lovely girl, the former Chantel Garden, and she works in Dallas. She's a computer trainer in the office of several attorneys. So we have a real nice family. And of course, I grew up here, so I have a lot of relatives.
Yes.
Bruce said when he came to church, one of the first things I told him was, don't talk about anyone in Grand Prairie or in the church, because you never know who they're related to. And that's true in a lot of areas.
And that's the First Baptist.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And as I said, we've been active there. He and I have worked together in departments for over 35 years, and we mostly worked with youth until the last 4 or 5 years. So.
What were the schools that Ronnie attended so that you could aid and abet him by being room mother and everything else?
Well, I actually started PTA a year or two before Ronnie was born. Before he entered first grade.
Okay.
It almost went back that far, it seemed like, but anyway, that was at Bowie, and he started school in '62. And at Bowie, I was secretary and some of the chairmanships, held some of those. And then we moved over on the other side of town, and he went to Adams. So I was vice president, I was secretary, and then vice president at Adams, and then I went to Grand Prairie High, and there I was president the first year he was at Grand Prairie High. And I also that year was president of Grand Prairie Study Club, so it was a pretty busy year.
It was.
The next year they asked me to be council president, and before that time, mainly because I had worked a lot of the time, I had never considered being a president of a local, and so after I ran out of excuses because I'd been president of Grand Prairie High School, I did accept the Grand Prairie City Council PTA presidency the next year.
All right, your year on the city council was 1972-73. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your officers and then tell us about your program that year?
All right. Marguerite was Director 1. Penny Penwell was actually our president's aide, and she did a real fine job, and Marguerite was most helpful to me. Lou Anderson, Joyce Seymour, Jean McCoy, Peggy, and Rita Anderson was also an officer, and Ella Harris was a parliamentarian. And I had a wonderful group. I mentioned about the year previous to that, and I know early in the fall I did have to go to the hospital for a week, and these ladies just carried on as if I wasn't there and did a real fine job. And I've always said PTAers are the finest people in the world, but Grand Prairie High, or Grand Prairie, they were extra special, I think, and I appreciated that. One of the things I thought about is they were talking about the training. We had excellent attendance at these training sessions. I remember our leadership course, we had over 60 people that attended that, and then our parliamentary law course was taught by Marianne Leverage, who was to become the vice president of state PTA, and we had 32 attending that. We had 60 at a lot of our city council PTA meetings.
Oh, that's great.
And we had real good attendance at our schools of information, and I just appreciate the work of the local PTA presidents and others in encouraging their members to participate in these.
73. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your officers and then tell us about your program that year?
All right. Marguerite was Director 1. Penny Penwell was actually our president's aide, and she did a real fine job, and Marguerite was most helpful to me. Lou Anderson, Joyce Seymour, Jean McCoy, Peggy, and Rita Anderson was also an officer, and Ella Harris was a parliamentarian. And I had a wonderful group. I mentioned about the year previous to that, and I know early in the fall I did have to go to the hospital for a week, And these ladies just carried on as if I wasn't there and did a real fine job. And I've always said PTAers are the finest people in the world, but Grand Prairie High, or Grand Prairie, they were extra special, I think, and I appreciated that. One of the things I thought about as they were talking about the training, we had excellent attendance at these training sessions. I remember our leadership course, we had over 60 people that attended that, and then our parliamentary law course was taught by Mary Ann Leverage, who was to become the vice president of state PTA, and we had 32 attending that. We had 60 at a lot of our city council PTA meetings.
Oh, that's great.
And we had real good attendance at our schools of information. And I just appreciate the work of the local PTA presidents and others in encouraging their members to participate in these training sessions, because we've seen the result of that as they've come on up and worked in council and in various other capacities.
Your program theme that year?
Well, our state theme, I believe, was "Who says we can't, we can." And so our program theme was "We can," and we took the first letters of that "can" and we added "we can care, act, and inform." We dropped the silent I and made it inform. And Marguerite was our program chairman, and she planned some wonderful programs around this theme. We had a doctor, pediatric physician who came and talked, and we had some of the programs were given by our local school people on some of the new things that were happening in our school district. And we just had some very excellent programs that year, and we had a really fine time. Our chairman worked real diligently too. We were one of only 35 city councils to receive membership and magazine awards at the state PTA convention.
You did go to the convention?
Yes, I was out 1 month. But I think we had 17 of our 22 PTAs represented at that state convention, which I thought was really good. We did add 2 PTAs that year because Jackson South had been combined, and when Jackson went in, South went into the new building, well then it was necessary for them to organize, and we helped with that. And I don't know if you remember, but Johnson Elementary School opened in, I believe in January of 1971, and it was with the thought that they would not need Florence Hill Elementary, so that closed down, but a year and a half later they had to open that up again. So we helped organize that, so we were active in doing things like that. And one of the things I most enjoyed was working with all the people, and as these 2 have said, you make so many fine friends, and you probably wouldn't come in contact with them in other areas if it were not for PTA. And as I said, I joined PTA before Ronnie started school, and 36 years later I'm still active in PTA and still an officer at Post PTA.
Yes, we have a lot of post-PTA members right on this dais here today. Of all of the things that you've done, what are you think was the most exciting for you in PTA, Hazel?
Well, one of the...
You just got an honor. You better tell us about the honor they just gave you.
That was a great honor, and I was very surprised this past February to receive the Extended Service Award, which is it's been given now about 6-7 years.
Very prestigious award, yes.
And I appreciate that. One of the things that I enjoyed most about our year was the PAFL courses.
Yes.
You remember those? Louise Robinson was our chairman, and she really planned some very fine ones. One of them that drew a lot of interest, we had one on powder puff mechanics. The vocational school had opened, and so the teacher out there, instructor, taught that, and we went out and learned all about differentials and carburetors and all that sort of thing. And finally he said, if all else fails, just go find the nearest service station.
That's great. Well, Hazel and Marguerite and Peggy, I want to thank you all very much for sharing your administration with us of the past, but that you keep on doing good things for the community. Thank you for your service as president of the Women's Club. Peggy's been president of the Women's Club. Marguerite's been president of everything else except the Women's Club. I want to thank you all for sharing this and helping us to do a tribute, a real salute to the City Council of PTAs on their 50th anniversary. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.